24-year-old Anthony Essan appeared in court today, accused of the attempted murder of the senior army officer Mark Teaton. The Lieutenant Colonel was stabbed multiple times while wearing military uniform near Brompton Barracks in Kent on Tuesday, and he remains in a serious but stable condition in hospital. Well, the incident has obviously raised a huge amount of concerns and what protocols might be in place to help protect members of our armed forces. And I'm joined now by former British Army officer Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Crawford. Stuart, thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. I will just emphasise again, we do not want to find ourselves at all in any kind of contempt of court situation here. We absolutely would not want to prejudice anything that goes on going forward. But I'm very keen to just know, in general terms, about what kind of protocol there is for members of our armed forces when it comes to things like wearing uniform outside of barracks and stuff like that. What are the rules there? What's the advice, the guidance?
Good evening, Patrick. Well, all I would say is that we've been here before. And when I was serving, we had the euphemistically called Troubles in Northern Ireland, where members of the British Armed Forces were directly targeted by IRA terrorists. And we were discouraged and forbidden from wearing uniform in public because of the threat, which was very real at the time. And I always thought that that was a victory for the terrorists, because basically they forced uniformed armed forces personnel off the street. And indeed, we had to check under our cars before we got into them in case there was a car bomb there, both in the UK and London. I remember doing it well, and also in Germany, where the IRA did attack. But I think we have to accept that in a free liberal democracy in which we, thank goodness, still live, the uniformed armed forces are still part of our civic society. And to have them driven off the streets is probably not unacceptable. So forbidding people to wear a uniform in public, I think, is a retrograde step. It doesn't happen in other places with a diminished terrorist threat, like in the USA, where members of all three armed services proudly wear their uniforms in public, and I've lived there, and are complimented on them by the general public. And I think, although I'm not a great fan of all things American, that's the sort of paradigm that we should be looking for in the UK.
Yeah, again, I'm not in any way, shape or form looking to make specific reference to the incident that's taken place outside that barracks in Kent, but I do wonder, Stuart, whether or not as a society we've got to a situation where somebody wearing a military uniform can actually open themselves up to criticism in the street. I wonder, various different wars in the Middle East previously and things like that can lead to people actually copping it a bit for wearing a military uniform. You mentioned the difference between us and America there. I find that very sad if that's the case.
No, I mean, it very much is the case, or it was the case when I was representing the British Army in the USA in the 1990s. It was quite marked, the difference, because we had the troubles in Northern Ireland. But I think we've got to accept, I hope, that the uniformed armed services are part and parcel of our civic society. And there's no reason why they should not feel safe wearing the uniform that is part and parcel of their job. And bear in mind, they are, in essence, civil servants in uniform from doing so. And I think if we get to that point where they're banned from doing so, it'll be a sad day for the UK.
What kind of security is on offer for members of our armed forces when they are out and about? So whether it's leave or whether they are just leaving a barracks?
Well, I think the simple answer is very little. I mean, our soldiers and sailors and airmen don't carry sidearms as a rule. And therefore, they really are subject to normal civilian rules and look to the police for their security against violence or anything like that. And I don't think there's any argument to be made for allowing them to carry sidearms, because then we're on the slippery slope of being an armed society like the USA, and I don't think anybody's got any real appetite for that.
No. Are they told things like, look, you are conceivably a civilian target up here? Because it does make me wonder, you add that to the long list of very questionable reasons as to why anybody might join the British Armed Forces. I mean, earlier on in the show, I did a bit of a contrast between the way that I felt a lot of the establishment media and certainly social media reacted to two incidents that really kind of kicked off at the same time. Obviously, what happened outside that barracks in Kent, and what happened at Manchester Airport and how quickly all of the narrative came about Manchester Airport. I just wonder, you know, do our armed forces feel valued enough, really, do you think?
Well, I think the answer is no, and there are a whole host of reasons for that. But I think that the way that they are portrayed in the media, in general terms, is not necessarily favourable. And the way that the Ministry of Defence press, PR, and media communications defend the armed forces is appallingly poor and has been for as far back as I can remember. So I think there's a lot to be done in presenting the armed forces as a valuable part of civic society in the UK, because without defence of the realm and its citizens, then everything else is extremely vulnerable. And you can forget about the NHS and schools and education and housing and all that sort of stuff. If we can't defend it, then it's worthless.
Yeah, no, look, 100%. And we are now in a situation, aren't we, where we're talking about how we've got 3 years to prepare for war, or we've got however long to prepare for a war. And you think, well, maybe we shouldn't have given the military an absolute kicking. Maybe we shouldn't have gratuitously gone after people like Dennis Hutchins, etc., and tried them 3 times for the same thing and then left them to die on their own in a Belfast hospital and all of that stuff. You think maybe actually we should have done more to actually protect the legacy of our armed forces and look after our veterans, maybe even, dare I say it, pay them a bit more. You know, we hear huge. I mean, we have massive strikes, don't we, for teachers, for nurses, for all of that stuff, for people who work on our railways. We don't strike for the army, do we? But we also don't go outside and clap them on a Tuesday evening. But anyway, thank you very much for joining us. Former British Army officer there, Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Crawford. You take care.